Rollo Tomassi versus Mikhaila Peterson. Recently they were talking about the red pill. So let's get into it.
When it comes to the fundamental question is, now that we have access to, let's just say, more accurate information, and again, that can be politically, religiously, personally, romantically, whatever. I have more access now in the 21st century than I ever did before. And now that I'm aware of this, it's like the tree that fell off the fruit that fell off the tree that Eve ate, right? I've got knowledge of good and evil all of a sudden.
He's talking about the red pill, just for context. So he's talking about once you have access to the red pill.
Well, now I've got that. What do I do with that information? How do I live better? And so that's the problem. I think that guys like Stardust, probably yourself, it seems like these guys get really negative, and they do, but they're going to have to deal with it. It's not me that's doing it and leading guys astray. They're going to get this information, whether I am here or I'm not. So to me anyways, it seems like it would be better to have a guide than to just sort of try to sort things out yourself.
Okay. I guess, so I think I agree with most of what you just said, especially the fact that people need access to statistics and information properly. I guess the way I come at it is, so birth control, for instance, most women, and they're not generally aware of this, most women, they start taking the pill, they get massively depressed and like mentally ill, to be completely honest. And so that hasn't been advantageous for women either. Mm-hmm. In fact, if they're the ones on it, they're the ones that can be crazy. And that is a side effect that hits most people, but most people start it so young that they don't know that it's happening to them. That's awful. And people should be aware of that information before going on the pill. They should be aware of the fact that their sexual preferences change while they're on the pill. Like, this information should be spread around like what you're doing. But I don't think
100% agree. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think the fault is, I don't think the fault is necessarily with women, and I don't think the way to solve the problem is to go back. I don't think there is any going back. Like, you can't give women education, the ability to work in the workplace, and then tell the women who are super productive, oh no, you have to stay home. Like, you can't do these things. So we need to come up with a way forward with all the information so that people are aware, hey, if you wait until you're 30, you're going to have a harder time having kids. And that's not, society's fault. That's just biology, right? And so people should have access to this information. But when you give people access to the information, it shouldn't end up with anybody being angry about it, right? And I see in your comments, there are a lot of, disgust at women, disgust at single mothers, when the way society is right now is really making everybody suffer.
Black pill is basically
yes.
When you say
agree.
that looks,
and you're looking at a demographic of guys that we call I guess the most
if you are
extreme
born
end of
genetically of a
MGTOWs,
certain
like
disposition,
their own way.
then you will have success in the
there's also
marketplace,
sort of like
in the dating
black
marketplace,
pill,
and
which
if you're
is
not,
like it's
then
all
you will not.
hopeless. And I think that when guys go from being what we call blue pill to being red pill, right? They're unplugging from this old way of thinking about things. They believed in an old order way of thinking. They believed in what I call the old set of books. It's like a rule set that guys have believed for a long time was what everybody else was using. And so they say, okay, well, if I do these things or follow this rule set, then I'll find a good girl and she'll love me just as much as I love her. And it's, that Disney Pixar kind of soulmate crap. And then they realize either generally through a point of trauma or crisis that people aren't playing by that rule set. And I think they're becoming like more and more men right now, especially, now 21 years into the 21st century, are becoming more aware of that. And for some guys, they get really upset and angry and nihilistic and despondent at that. I think I put it in my second book. There is a post that I converted into a chapter, and it's called the 5 stages of unplugging. And those 5 stages are synonymous with dealing with death, right? It's denial, anger, acceptance. You get all through the 5. I forget all the 5 steps, but you finally get down to sort of acceptance. And then the 6th step, that people take it to, is like getting jaded about things. But the 2nd step is getting angry. And I think a lot of people think that the red pill makes guys angry at women. And I could tell you right now, there's nothing could be further from the truth, because what happens is when guys become aware of the new rule set, like I was saying, the new order, thinking, when they become aware of that, they don't get angry at women. They get angry at themselves for having believed in the old rule set for so long, because depending on how old the guy is, they probably live most of their lives according to that rule set. And now it's kind of like, oh, God damn it. Now I got to reset. Now I got to, erase everything. And I got to, figure out how to make my life work in this new paradigm.
That's a really good point, I think, that he made. It's not about being angry at women, because women are a great force to complement our lives. But when you go through some of your life, or most of your life, playing by one rule set and you realize you were playing the wrong game, that can be upsetting. So I get where he's coming from.
And as I said before, most guys don't have that creativity. They don't know how to see opportunity in that paradigm, because they're still kind of hung up on the things that they really wanted that were, just simply not, it's their blue pill idealism. And those ideals are gone, and they don't know how to deal with the true nature of men and the true nature of women. And it's, fed to them on a daily basis. So especially a younger generation get really despondent and get really angry. Again, I said I would argue that it's more about men getting angry at themselves, because it's like, what is it, opportunity cost? Like all of that opportunity, all the things that they could have done, the life they could have lived had they known this. That's where I wrote the second book, because I had so many guys say, Rollo, I wish I would have had your first book before I got divorced or got married or had kids. I took this as a major. I did, I moved to a different country, whatever. I wish I would have known that, or followed this girl across, Timbuktu. And so that's why I wrote the second book, because it's sort of a timeline of what these guys can expect. But that was the most common, reaction to all of this. And usually as a result of passing through that anger phase into the acceptance phase. And now what they do is they use this information to build better lives, or in some cases, save their own lives, take the noose off their neck, take the gun out of their mouth. I've got a post called, the Safety Net? And in that post, there's over 1,000 guys with testimonials in there saying, I literally had a date with death. I was literally planning a date for me to hang myself or, shoot myself or whatever. I was getting all the insurance, in line to make sure my kids were taken care of and everything. And then I read your book and I canceled that date. And now because of that, my kids have a father still to this day. And there's, like I said, there's over 1,000 comments. And that's usually why when people ask me for testimonials, I usually point them to that comment thread. But we can say, well, look at the comments on your blog, look at the comments in your chat. Yeah, that's going to be there because people they don't know how to deal with or cope with hard empirical data. And I'm the one giving it to. I happen to be the one giving it to them, but it doesn't mean that I got a monopoly on that, not by any stretch of the imagination.
Okay. Well, I don't have anything against red pill guys. I think that's the only way to go. And it also, it makes men more attractive if they're aware of what's going on. So I'm all for that. It's the kind of resentment that can come along with it that I think just breeds into the problem.
Well, I think we think of
along with it sometimes, not for everybody, like you said, for a small percentage of people.
Yeah. Well, again, and those are the ones who are going to leave a drive-by comment. They're the ones who are going to go, yeah, well, bitches ain't nothing but tricks and hoes, right? That'll be the comment, just because they want to feel heard. You also notice, because maybe you don't know this because you're not in my sphere, I guess, but whenever I see guys who sort of leave these one-hit comments or something, it's usually that same kind of mentality. It's guys who just, they don't even, literally, I've done YouTube shorts. I'm sure you know what YouTube shorts are. Yeah. Like 59-second videos. And usually what I do is I clip them out of other videos because I think they're, they're pithy and whatever. I put them up. When I stopped doing those, by the way, but when I started doing those, I thought they were, be little bite-sized info bites for these guys. And what I was finding is that people who were commenting on those, and they, the viewership was fantastic on those. Mm-hmm. What I found was that you could clearly tell by the guy's comment that they didn't even watch a 59-second video. They just saw the title and they saw like maybe the first 2 or 3 comments, and they're like, yeah, man, bitches ain't nothing but tricks and hoes. Bye. You know, and they don't look, they won't spend the time to watch a YouTube short, but they will spend the time, probably longer time, to type out a comment because they think that they know what I'm talking about by the thumbnail or the title of the video. They look at the first 3 comments and then they go and chime in as well. That's the mentality. It's what I call the TLDR generation. It's like this generation of men and women who have ADHD, at least because of social media. They don't stop to think about things. They don't take any time to watch even a 59-second video. They will just simply go and comment because they want to feel heard. They just want to have something that says, I'm frustrated and I'm going to put this on this, this stupid short that I didn't watch. It's like, well, it took you like 59 seconds. You would probably save yourself from embarrassment or getting, self-ownage, right? Had you even watched that. But guys don't care because they just type it in and they're on to the next one, because that they want to feel like somebody out there in the, the internet verse, actually gives a shit about what they say.
So in your book or in any of your books, do you give people tools about how to move forward once they're aware of how hard life is?
I think that's all I give them is tools, pretty much. How they interpret that is different. I don't say, here's how you do these things. I don't do prescriptions. I don't say, here's the one size fits all. Here's the rules. Like people love this because I have in my first book, I've got the 9 iron rules of Tomassi. And that's what most of my critics and the people who love me to death fixate on, because they think of them as being sort of like a step-by-step guide or some sort of like, here's it's like the 10 commandments, right? And I'm thinking backwards, I probably wouldn't have named them the 9 iron rules of Tomassi now had I had to do it all over again. But though I thought they were, sort of universal kind of things for guys to think about. But then I get in trouble for them because, again, people only, if they know of those 9 iron rules, they tend to always misinterpret them, or they interpret them in such a way that they can straw man me and say, oh, this is what he really meant. I don't have a guide to the universe, right? And I think anybody who's claiming that they do is selling you something. Now, I am an author now, and so do I sell books? Yes, I do. However, I also sell information, and how guys take that information and use that to their own benefit is really kind of up to the individual. The reason why I back off from prescriptions is because I don't presume to say that everything that's worked out for me will also work out for you. I can't tell somebody, like I'm 53 years old. I can't tell some kid who is 25 years old in South Africa or Nepal or Japan or whatever, that here's what's going to work for you. It's a universal truth. You just do this and you'll have a good time, or you'll be set. I'm not going to do that because I don't know what the context of their lives are. I can only give them like sort of the generalities, I guess. Like, here is women's nature. Here is men's nature. Here is the nature of the game that you are in. Here's things to look for. Here's things to expect. How you use that data is really up to the individual. As I said before, I'm not looking to create Tomassi men. I want them to make their own. In fact, I say this all the time. Show me your work. Show me what you built. Show me how you went from being like single and sexless to having a girlfriend. Show me like how you've developed your business. Show me how you have taken this data and used it to your own benefit. Because I'm not giving out like success programs. I'm not a success porn hustler. I'm a guy that is just simply giving, data. Here's some things to think about. I connect dots. What do you think of that? In fact, I say, if you think I'm full of shit, please tell me. Usually it's like, oh, you're a cult leader. Well, that's an opinion. What I want to know is, why do you disagree with this point that I made in the book? Why do you disagree with what I'm saying right here on this particular tenet? Okay, because then we can have a conversation. Then we can actually sort of suss that out and say, well, maybe here's something I thought about and maybe you didn't think about. But we don't do that in this generation, because quick hit template lists of ways to go from hero to zero, that sells. That's why people keep saying, well, you're so under monetized, Rollo. I'm just now talking to you, Mikhaila. I'm just now getting into like working with Robert Kiyosaki. I'm just now, people are starting to take notice. I've been doing this for 20 freaking years, but people don't, they'll quote me, or they'll use terminology that they've heard from my book or something I said at some point that somebody else, third party might have said. but they don't realize where it came from. And the reason for that is because I don't sell prescriptions. If I was like Tony Robbins and said, hey guys, let's all, feel better about ourselves and put ourselves first, that sells tickets to, sell out arenas. But what doesn't is hard empirical data. Again, would you rather be happy or would you rather be right? If I'm looking at like people who are selling prescriptions and how do I go forward? How do I make a better, life for myself? I don't think anybody can answer that except for the individual, except for that person. How are you going to use this data for your own benefit? So that's why I'm not doing, Tony, I could very easily go do Tony Robbins seminars. I could very easily go and, do a world tour and say, here's the prescription for a better life. But I'm not going to do that because I think it's up to the individual to sort of cater that to their own lives.
So Rollo Tomassi, he's pretty big in the red pill space. Mikhaila, it looks like she is leaning more towards the red pill. I didn't know her stance before this video. I know she didn't say much. What do you guys think in the comments below? Leave your comment about whether or not, I'd like to see more about what this guy has to offer, Rollo Tomassi. He seems to be an advocate for spreading information to men about what the red pill is in the dating space, and I think that's a great thing. I personally think that the only way forward is to accept that men and women have their differences, that we are very different in the way that we approach dating and the opposite sex, and the only way forward is to learn those differences about each other and adapt, instead of blaming each other that we're different. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and the commentary, and I'll catch you in the next video.